Hello and welcome to Brax will let you know, where we're using the voices in this world for the change we need in the world. Today, I have a very special guest. Care to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Alyssa Acosta. I am the creator, owner, and founder of Santo Suerte Healing. I am a two-spirited bruja, a psychic medium, intuitive card reader, and ancestral medicine worker, and I'm currently training to become a full-spectrum doula. I am currently on Cherokee and Caddo land, better known as Austin, Texas, born and bred Texan, and my pronouns are she, her, they, them, we, us.
Yes, beautiful. Like every discussion, I always lead us into a quote to get us loose, get us in the spirit. And so it reads, I have a much wider, freer view about spirituality. I feel that people need to pursue it on their own, personally, let it be theirs, a personal relationship with their soul or their God or with their church. And
Mm.
so today, Al and I are going to be talking a little bit about spirituality and touch a little bit about spiritual gifts that can come with that. So, the first question for you is, when you hear the term spirituality, what comes to mind?
Ooh, I feel for me when I hear of spirituality, it's more so having the freedom to allow any and all beliefs that resonate with you to become a practice for you.
I love that. And that leads me perfectly into the second question. And I see like there's been an emergence within our generation, as well as like generations after us, of a separation of spirituality and religion. I think
Mhm.
for a long time there's been an intertwining relationship of the spiritual practice that's within the religion. And like breaking that down, spirituality is like you said, like the beliefs, the morals, the vibrations. And I
Mhm.
think that that can be found in religion and without religion, essentially.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, spirituality is not something that just started like in a new age. It's ancestral. It's been since the beginning of time, even before colonization happened. Our ancestors understood the importance of spirituality and what it meant to connect to vibrations, to connect to the elements, to connect to what we could see and what we couldn't see. And I think it's really beautiful to see that shift in consciousness happening with generations before us and even our current generation now.
Mhm.
Um, we're really sort of separating from that main ideology of like, we have to live a certain way in order for us to be good human beings. And we have to watch our tongues, watch the way we speak and the way that we act in order for us to be perceived as good rather than letting our actions and our vibrations
Mhm.
show that within ourselves.
Do you think actually that that there, like maybe in the future generation, there can be a religion that's like no religion, essentially? Like I feel like now we sort of have the label of spiritual, like I'm spiritual. Do you
Mhm.
think that eventually that it will become like religion almost, but in a sense, not in a sense of I guess ordered or like a text or anything, but in a sense like we can all come together and feed off each other's energy and create energy, and that in itself is religion. Do you get what I mean?
I get what you're saying. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's already been sort of happening from what I've
Mm,
just been able to see. There's so many people that are wanting to learn about, for someone who might, deal more with Hinduism and the beliefs in Hinduism.
mm,
It's not so much of like they're wanting to know like exactly what made them believe in it, but just to have a deeper understanding because then they can take some of that understanding and that knowing that resonates with them and then it just helps them with like enveloping and unveiling more about themselves and what their spirit tends to hold. So I do feel as if like that could possibly be a thing. And I think for me, I do see that like in future generations a
mhm,
lot more of ancestral teachings and ancestral beliefs will start coming more into the forefront.
that's interesting. I think what's so interesting about it is not the fact that I get no, yeah, I guess it's the fact that it's not like my ancestors has ever told me how to be spiritual, you know?
Mhm.
And to hear those words out of your mouth saying like it's sort of like natural in a sense, like it just sort of happened sometimes without guidance, and it's just based on reson- resonating, or like
Yeah.
what energy you vibe with at the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when it comes into, that ancestral wisdom, like we hold that within our DNAs. And so the
Mhm.
more and more that we continue to grow and the more and more that we start living into becoming our full authentic self, that ancestral DNA and that wisdom tends to shine through.
Mm.
Like when I first started my spiritual journey, it was back in like 2013, and it was in Christianity. And I mean, like, I was reading my Bible like every night, and, I was like praying every night, doing things very traditional. And as much as that helped me, it just never really resonated with me. I felt like I needed to do it because that's what I was meaning to do. And then I ended up kind of like teetering off from that. And for, probably maybe 5 years, I was just kind of wandering, being really lost. And then in 2018, I started meditating and I started understanding spirituality and like what it actually meant to be one with spirit rather than
Mm.
live uh trying to live my life as like a holy roller, so to speak. And I
Mm.
mean, like, no offense to people that believe in Christianity, Catholicism, like Orthodox religions. Um yeah, I was always that kid that questioned it. I was like,
Mhm.
like I don't
Yeah,
know. Some of these things aren't adding up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so that leads me to yeah, I can sort of give my introduction for how we've been introduced. So a friend of mine, dear friend of mine, she introduced us to it was like a few days before my birthday, and she was like, "Hey Braxton, I know someone who's doing card reading. You should you should sign up." And I was like, "Oh yeah." I mean, you gave me a lot of wisdom, you gave me a lot of insight, and it was beautiful. And towards the end, I think you asked me another question. You asked me like, "Is there something else that I want to know?" And I was like, "Yeah, like this question has been on my mind." And it was essentially about storytelling, which is what I'm doing now. And for the longest, like I've been journaling forever about wanting to get into storytelling, documenting, and interviewing, and like sharing some stories. Basically, you told me that not to worry, like if there were any doubts or anything, not to worry about them, and if it's financial, not to worry about that. And so that leads me to now, and how I've been so blessed and fortunate to be I was able to receive unemployment at the time. And so that was my financial gain for the time being, because I've been like not struggling financially, but like, how am I going to do this, or
Mhm.
what are the resources I can do to do this? And for the longest, I've been looking for job opportunities for it, and I never received a job. So I
Mhm.
was like, okay, so now that I'm able to sustain myself financially, then I can maybe do this myself. Like everything pretty much aligned. And that was so beautiful. And I let you know, as soon as I had the revelation, I was like, all the financial stuff has been taken care of. And like the clouds have opened up for me to do this. So I was like, I'm going to do it. And
Yeah.
so that's another topic that we're going to talk a little bit about, was spiritual gifts and what that sort of means. Because even when I was doing some research, it was hard for me to find explanations of what spiritual gifts were.
Mhm.
The only video I kind of saw was in regards to Bible verses, actually. Do you care to talk a little bit about what spiritual gifts are?
So for me and my understanding, because I feel like spiritual gifts come into where you're able to connect with spirit. And so for an example, like my older sister and I, when we were younger, we always used to tell one another, she was like, I can hear the water and like I can connect to
Mm.
water. And for me, I was always like, I can listen to the wind and I can hear the wind sing. And I feel like a lot of my cousins, like we were all really like tuned into that spiritualness, because I remember the first time that like Me, my sister, my cousin Gina, she like we all watched The Craft together for the first time, and we were like, oh, we're gonna go outside and we're gonna be witches, and like it was a beautiful sunny day, and we were like, we didn't even. I want to say we were honestly like between the ages of like 5, 6, and 7. Um, and so we were all just like holding hands, and we just started twirling around in a circle, and we didn't even know what we were saying. We were just honestly like just speaking whatever came through our hearts and whatever came through our minds.
Mm,
And I remember at one point we all just started saying, because Texas was in a really bad drought during that year, and it had been for a couple of years, and I just remember we kept saying like, like, we want it to rain, we need rain, let it rain, let it rain. And then the next thing you know, it just started getting really dark and it started getting really cloudy. And then it just poured down raining.
mm.
And so we all were like, oh my God. I think they were a little bit more scared and I was more excited. So I went and I like told my grandma, and my grandma was like, no, like, don't be doing that.
Mm.
Kind of got off topic there for a bit, but I feel like with spiritual gifts,
Oh,
it's more so of like, you can connect to the elements very easily. You can hear, you can see, you can just have that sense of knowing. You can smell something and you have that understanding of it. For some people, it comes through music, and for other people, they feel it, where they're able to connect to source and they're able to connect to spirit and allow that divine energy to channel through to them. Which
mhm,
is where, if you've ever, so for most people, they hear about Jesus Christ, and how he was able to heal people with
mhm,
illnesses and ailments. And it's because, you know, he was able to just connect into source energy and was able to allow that divine energy to come through and to clear out any sort of blockages and to clear out any sort of, because I'm also a believer that like a lot of our ailments tend to come from spiritual wounds. And that kind of goes into like with my ancestral teachings of curanderismo. So it's like clearing out those spiritual wounds so that way the soul can be healthy and allow
mhm,
the body to be healthy. And so I feel like with for a lot of people, some people may hear about psychic abilities and spiritual gifts, and so they'll think it's like clairvoyant, claircognizance, clairaudience. um, uh, there's like a couple of other ones, but it's usually like those three are the like main ones that people tend to hear about. And it's so much more than that.
mhm,
You can honestly just like be someone who loves to sing, and the moment that you just start singing, like you'll start feeling a vibration inside of you,
mhm,
or you'll start noticing that like you're starting to see things a little bit differently. If you connect to the elements, you might start noticing that trees tend to have faces, or that you can see flowers breathing.
mm.
You can actually see what it is that we can't see with our two naked human eyes, but you can see with your first eye, which, most people tend to call the third eye, but I was taught to call it the first eye because it's the first eye that sees everything.
Mm. I love that. And that it's crazy because I was literally thinking when I was writing these questions down, I was like, can spiritual gifts also be through and I was literally thinking music, and you read my mind. Cause I don't know if you've seen Soul. Have you seen Soul yet? The
Yes.
Disney?
Oh,
And like the way he got lost when he was playing music is like I consider that to be like he was spiritual. Like it was a spiritual expression, it was like spiritual energy. It was like I don't like his body was taken over. It was just straight like I don't
oh,
know. It was beautiful.
absolutely. I mean, if you've ever seen someone who's perfected an instrument or their voice, you can tell when something's a performance, and then you can tell when something comes from the soul. And it's usually whenever
Mhm.
they just get lost, and you can feel it, like you feel
Yeah.
that vibration, whether it's through a screen, whether you're hearing it through headphones, whether you're seeing it live. You feel that vibration coming through because it knows no boundaries. The
Mm.
spirit will always come to you no matter what. There are no barriers for spirit. And if there are any barriers, it's usually from our own conscious mind of like trying to shut it out because it's so unknown to us,
Mm.
and we might get scared of it. And so therefore our first reaction is to protect ourselves from something we don't know, and it's shutting it out.
Right. Mm. That's interesting. Um, I wrote a little bit about my experience, and it resonated a little bit when you were saying that your grandmother was like, no, no, don't say that or anything.
Hmm.
I told a relative about my dreams, um, and how at one point, like I was having, like 2 summers ago, I was having dreams where like the events would happen in real life like two or 3 days later. Like I knew, like I had a text, like someone sent me a text of like, hey, come to my concert tonight, blah blah blah. And I was like, okay. And I even told my roommates, I was like, hey, like this was my dream. Like I'll let you know if it happens. 2 days later, I received the text, and it was on the same day because I remember in my dream, like I was able to think, I was like, okay, check the date to see like, um, and so when I got the text, I looked at the date and I was like, this is the date, this is the text. And I even told the person that invited me, I was like, this was in my dream. But like that wasn't what freaked out my relative. What freaked out my relative was there's like some dreams that I can remember vividly where it's like I am a light source and I'm able to travel into different people. Typically, they're women, which is very interesting to me. Like most of them have been women, and from that, I'm able to know. Like I know their whole life. Like I know who the relatives or the people are around them. It's a familiar place that I'm at. Like I've seen like these people. I've seen where I'm at. I know the relationships we have, and it's just very interesting. And it's only happened in dreams. And when I told my relative, they were like, "Oh no, that's demonic. Like that's probably like." I was like, "But it wasn't. It wasn't like it was. It was a beautiful experience, and it
Hmm.
wasn't like anything terrible. It was just like I was just living another life.
Yeah.
And I was just chilling."
I mean, that's another way that you can have spiritual gifts is like by being able to travel through the dream realm, because it's like the only time that we shut off our conscious mind, and then our subconscious tends to like really kind of awaken, and we're able to go into these different states of consciousness. And so like prophetic dreams, and a lot of people have had prophetic dreams, a lot of people have astral traveled. I myself have gone into like a whole different dimension where, I mean, to be honest, I would say it was like it was not even on this planet, it was
Wow.
probably like on another planet. um, and I've been there a couple of times,
Hmm.
but you know like a question just kind of came through like while you were saying that, and it's like, do you see yourself as a light worker?
Me?
Yeah, like it was a question for you, like, do you see yourself as a light worker?
I'm not too. Do you mind defining that?
So a light worker is someone who is able to work with divine source. They everything that they do, no matter what it is in life, it's for the highest healing good of not only themselves, but for the others around them and within their community. So for some people, they can be light workers and they can be musicians, and their music helps heal people. For other
Mm,
people, they can be light workers, and then they can be, like massage therapists, and they're able to help people release like old stagnant energy or wounds through the art of touching. So I feel like for light working, it's like you're able to, because like whenever you said that you like were a light source,
yeah,
it
now
just
it's I
kind
can
of,
see like the being flying, and then I go into a person.
yeah. So it's just kind of like, oh, like what if he's a light worker? Hmm.
Interesting. I'm gonna think about it, and I'm actually gonna write about it to see. Yeah, I could see that. Um, and I think, but the only time I can really think about it is like through writing, and when
Mhm.
people have like contacted me personally and saying, "Oh, I resonate with this," or like, "These are the words that I needed," in a sense.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, I think that's like, again, it's like whenever you're working with source and having that source energy come through, it doesn't just come through one medium, it comes through multiple mediums, because source is everything. It's
Mm,
within us, it's in everything around us, whether that whether it be living, breathing, or it's a rock, it's the water, it's the air. There's just it's everywhere, and it's in everything.
yeah,
And even in our words, because our words are so powerful.
yeah, yeah. What is your advice for people who may be having like these awakenings or realizations of like, oh, like this, like I've been able to have those dreams or something like that? Like how do you sort of, because for me personally, like it doesn't happen every day. Like it
Mhm.
happens like when it does. and I try to write it down if I can. But what do you say for like people who may be in environments where it's sort of rejected or it's not?
Uh, I would honestly say the best thing to do is to document it, however that means to you. Yeah, so if you are having these experiences of spiritual awakenings, like document it, whether that be through you writing it down, through you recording it, like in a voice diary app,
Mm,
also like l- drawing it. There are so many ways where
love
you
that.
can really let that come through and document it and even put the date on there. When I first had like I even have it on my phone still, of my spiritual awakenings, and I'm like, where's it at? Because I write so much down, I really
I love
do.
that.
um like I have, like, from 2018 when I did like a meditation and I met an ancestor, and then like the 5 rules of Reiki, and I have like all of these like notes that I just wrote down of like when I first started going through my spiritual awakening. And it was like literally like signs, whether
Mm,
that be like through numbers, through animals, through like songs that would come on the radio, and then I
mm.
would just like hear that, like it would resonate with me, and I was like, that's a sign. And
Yeah.
some of my family members kind of make fun of me because they're like, you think everything's a sign, and I'm like, because everything is a sign. Like if you
Hmm.
listen close enough, like not looking for signs, but if you listen close enough, the signs are there and the
Yeah.
messages are there for you. You just have to be open to actually receiving them.
Mm,
um, and to not really allow the judgment of others to stop you from these spiritual awakenings. Now, if you have questions, about like if what you're going through or what you're experiencing is normal, if it is a spiritual awakening, because it's going to be different for everybody, you know, you can always reach out to people who have gone through spiritual awakenings and that you feel comfortable talking about. We have the internet is a great resource, so you can always, be very weary with Google, but you can like go and see blogs, um, go to people on YouTube who have gone through spiritual awakenings. Um, and one thing that I do like to tell people when it comes to spiritual awakenings, because we hear this word and a lot of people tend to think that it's this like grand experience, and then like for some people it can be a grand experience and it can feel like really amazing, and then for other people that shit can be scary.
mm,
It can be very scary. It can knock your world upside down. You may start seeing and feeling as if your whole entire world is falling apart and you don't know what to do, and you feel as if like, well, I don't know if I did anything wrong, I don't know why this is happening, I've been trying to do this. That could also be a spiritual awakening. It's just having to release and like really allow you to be free of what is no longer serving you in order for you to move forward in the life that you have always wanted for yourself and that spirit has always wanted for you.
mm.
So that's like a little thing I like to tell people, because I really wish someone would have told that to me when I first started going through my own spiritual awakening. Um, like the first time I had one, which was in 2013, it was very like dreamy and ooh and ah. I remember I was like getting off the bus from school, and I was like walking, and all of a sudden I just remember seeing like everything around me turn green, and I was like, what is happening?
Wow.
And then I looked, and it honestly felt like I was on psychedelics.
Wow.
But I wasn't, because at the time I was not partaking in anything.
Hmm.
And I just remember like seeing like geometric shapes in the sky, and I started seeing like trees breathing and moving and showing me like what life was really like for them, that
Wow.
us as humans cannot see.
Hmm.
And so I thought like, oh wow. And at the time I didn't know what was happening. And then my last like spiritual awakening that I had was like scary as hell.
Mm.
I was in 2018. I was doing Dia de los Muertos for the first time because my family didn't
Oh.
really practice it.
Hmm.
And so I had pictures of my ancestors up, and I had candles, and then all of a sudden this bird flies into my window and knocks itself unconscious. And my family has always told me that like if that happens, it's a bad omen, and like that there's something evil coming to get you. So I remember going and like I remember I was like, oh my God, and my cat's outside looking at it like, and he's like starts pawing at it to see if it's awake. And it was just kind of stunned. And so of course, I got a box and I like turned it upside down very gently. And then I walked downstairs and I let it out and it just flew as if everything was fine. And then a couple days afterwards, there were 3 hawks that were sitting on the roof because I was on a 3rd-story apartment of the building across from me. And I had a picture of my grandma and her 2 sisters. And at that time, it had been a year since my grandma had passed, and she was my only living relative. Um, and so I was like connecting to her spirit a lot. And I was like,
Mm,
oh, that's very interesting.
yeah.
And then from then on out, I remember like a couple days afterwards, I was, because I'm like the mediator for my family,
Mm.
and I was having to like mediate a situation, and then all of a sudden I just see this like huge snake like in the like going through the middle of the road, and it's like a black, like it's really pitch black at night. I wasn't able to get over because I try not to run over animals as best as possible,
Mhm.
and there was no way around it, and I had to run over it, and I felt it. It wasn't
Mm.
like a little tiny snake. It was like, no, the snake was probably at least like 6 feet long and maybe about like,
Wow.
I would say maybe about like a foot in width. And then I went back later the next day to go look at it, and it was a poisonous snake that I had ran over. And I was so scared because there was all these things that were happening, and it wasn't like they were just happening like once. It was like no, they were happening like almost every other day.
Wow.
And I was like, and I really didn't have like a community to go to and ask. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I had a friend that I had worked with, but I could start seeing that like he wasn't always wanting me to like go to him.
Mm.
um so I really had to like turn into myself and like open myself up to my spirit guides and ask them like, what is happening?
I mean, and that in of itself is a spiritual experience. Like it's you turning into your like coming inward internally and asking what's going on or like what are these signs? It's a spiritual personal connection.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it was it was crazy, because I had never experienced anything like that before. Um, so then actually coming in, I remember because I was meditating a lot at that time, and everyone kept telling me like, oh, you just need to reach out to your spirit guides. You need to reach out to your spirit guides, and I did the foolish thing of when I tried reaching out to them, I automatically was like demanding them to help me rather than trying to get to know them.
Mm.
And I had the hardest time connecting to them. And so all these things were happening, and I was still trying to find out answers. And then I went to this workshop, and it was how to connect with your spirit guides. And so
Wow.
I remember I was sitting there in meditation, and the first spirit guide that came through was my grandma, because I knew her scent. I would smell her, I would feel her. She always had this like warm embrace around her.
Mm.
And she always smelled like jasmines and magnolias,
Mm.
um, and roses. She loved flowers. And I remember she just kept telling me like, escúchame. And I was like, I am listening. And then like I felt her like hit me on the back of the head, and she was like, no, listen to me. You're not listening right now. And I was like, well, what do you mean I'm not listening? She was like, you're too busy trying to demand the answers rather than actually listening to them.
Mm.
And I was like, whew, okay. And my grandma was very like cutthroat, really
Mhm.
straight to the point. And so then I actually started like anytime I would meditate, I would ask like, oh, are there any guides here with me right now? And
Mm.
if they said yes, I was like, cool, what's your name? Were you ever alive on Earth? Or do I know you from like another planet or another dimension? And I remember I had taken a full one, and like I was gone. I was like, holy shit, what the hell's happening? but I had to open the next morning at my job.
Oh no.
And so I was like, okay, I have to go to bed. I have to go to bed. And I remember I was like lying in bed, I was breathing. And then all of a sudden I started seeing this like door appear with like this green, it was like this like double door, and it was green, and it had these like green flowers on it, and then they all started turning in opposite directions, and it was like this door was opening. And then as soon as it opened, I just saw one like figure appear of a human.
Mm.
And then I saw another, and then another, and then another, and another, and it was like 5 of them. And I remember asking, I was like, are y'all my spirit guides? And they just started walking towards me, and I just heard, yes, and we're here to help you. And I was so freaked out at the time because I was like, maybe I'm just too high. And so I like jumped up out of bed, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try going back to bed. And so I went back to bed. And later on that night, I just remember sitting at a table with these 5 people who, like, I can never remember like their faces, but I remembered the way that their voice sounded. And I was like, you're so and so, and you're so and so, and you're so and so, and you helped me with this. And I was like familiarizing myself with them, and they were like, yeah, you know, we're here to help you because you're finally showing us that you are ready to understand what it means to embrace your gifts. Because from a very early age, I was always able to see spirits. That was like one thing I was always able to remember. I could see spirits. And whenever people would pass, I could see like their spirit would come to me and tell me if they were ready to leave or not. So I was like, oh, okay. And I just remember the first thing I told them, I was like, y'all are going to protect me, right? Like nothing bad's going to come for me. And they're like, no, you'd be so surprised of how heavily protected you are.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like really crazy experiences like that. And best believe I journaled each and every one of them. I
Yeah,
probably have like 10 journals since 2018 of
that's
like all my
beautiful.
spiritual experiences, all of my dreams, because I also have like prophetic dreams as well. And I travel and I communicate to people in dreams. And that's often how I have met a lot of my ancestors, is through dreams.
I love that. Yeah, and I hear, I think I saw something. It was saying how dreams are like the closest we can get to a source that is God. In a sense that like it's unlimited. It's like straight energy source, and it's just straight like it's beautiful. Like, and even then, like the stuff we don't see with our eyes, like everything's formulated in the mind where we can. It's an infinity world. It's crazy. Not crazy bad, but like crazy, like unbelievable.
Yeah, it's just like mind blowing. You're like, oh my gosh, like some of the stuff that you can dream up of, it's just incredible and it's amazing. And even then the meanings behind it, it's like you're getting all of these messages and information downloaded to you in like this space that has no limits. And we can tap into it like so easily, like as long as we know how to kind of like fully let our body rest. And then I remember seeing because you know, like whenever you dream it feels like for eons. And I was reading like you actually only dream for like 30 to 45 minutes and it's like right before you wake up. And I'm like, like that was like what really like blew my mind. I was like, I'm over here fucking traveling to all these places and I'm really only like dreaming for 30 minutes before my alarm goes off.
It's insane. So beautiful. Wow. Well, thank you. And I close every discussion with any advice, any words of wisdom for the audience.
Oh, listen to your heart. Listen to your heart. Listen to your intuition, and your intuition can come through as that voice of consciousness. And don't be afraid to be yourself, no matter what that means and how that looks. And if people are going to agree with it, if people are going to tell you that you're changing and they're going to try and make you feel bad, just you have to do what's right for you and what's best for you, and you can't stop yourself for other people.
Mm, beautiful. That was beautiful. Oh, that resonated with me. Beautiful. Wow. Thank you. Always a pleasure. Always a
Thank you for
pleasure.
this opportunity.
No, thank you. Thank you for joining us. If anyone wanted to reach out or seek or wanted to support your business, how could they reach you?
Yeah. So you can guys follow me on Facebook, Santos Suerte Healing, IG at santos.suerte. You can also reach out to me or like book a session through my my website, which is santosuerte.com. And yeah, just like chat with me. Let me know what's going on with you. I love building community. I also have a podcast where I talk about spiritual experiences, the nitty gritty growth of spirituality, healing, and becoming our most true, authentic self, which is available on all platforms. And it's called Which Way to Grow, but which is spelled WITCH.
I love that.
I
Yeah,
like puns.
I love that. I'm gonna listen to it right after this, actually.
Yes.
Is it
Oh,
on
well,
can I get it through Spotify?
yeah, you can get it through Spotify, Google Podcast, Pocket Cast, Apple Podcast. It's I think it's available on like all streaming services
Wow,
now.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow, okay, I'm gonna listen to it right after this. Well,
Um,
thank you again. Today we talked about spirituality, the gifts that can come through that, and a little bit about dreams, which was dope. I'm glad we sort of talked about that because that's where I think well, not most. I think that spirituality is an everyday thing. Essentially, like
oh,
we
absolutely.
are, we are. Many things can resonate with us throughout the day, and I think that once we become in tune with that, and once we start, I guess, discovering what it is that makes us feel good, make us feel alive, then I think we can really start being more spiritual. Like it's not I think when it comes to spirituality, it's like, oh, I have to meditate every day, or I have to, like, you know what I mean? And like my
Holidays.
spiritual experiences are like when I'm in nature, or like, and I'm just feeling like the energy, and I'm healing, and I'm like gaining strength or wisdom. So just find what reson or even music, when we were talking about music. So like just finding
Yeah.
what what makes you feel alive. Yeah.
What makes you feel connected to yourself, to your spirit, to source, to everything around you? Because spirituality does not have one look. It is a look of many.
Oh, yes, I love that. Love that. It's essentially what you're saying, a world of infinity. In a
Yeah.
sense that it's in your dreams, it's in your awakening world, it's in living beings. So that's
Mhm.
beautiful. I love that. Um, with closing, thank you so much. And thanks for tuning in. And I'll see you next time on Brax will let you know. Thank
Bye.
you.